My name is France Pérodeau. I've been working in personal development and coaching people, accompanying people in wellness, if you will, well-being for more than 25 years now. And prior to that, I was a chiropractor. So very much been into the holistic field. In 92, I was introduced to a methodology with Dr. John Demartini that absolutely transformed my life. This is what actually prompted me eventually to leave chiropractic and dedicate myself to sharing the principles that have been so important in my life and the life of my clients. So this morning, the principles that we're going to see together, the things that we're going to see together, are mainly coming from these principles and this methodology that I have learned from Dr. Demartini, but that I have also applied in my life and kind of, how would I say, adjusted with my own color from working with it for so many years. Okay, so if any of you want to know more about Dr. Demartini, I have him in there in the presentation. It's his name is written there, so you'll be able to find it. You can research some of that. And also, as I'm thinking about it, I want to let you know that the PowerPoint presentation that we're going to be going through today will be available to you as a PDF version. So if you want to have it, a connection will be able to send it to you. All right. So let's go. So we know that all relationships are called to change with time. There's no one relationship that will stay forever the same, right? It will change in time. But for caregivers, oftentimes those changes are very drastic, or they can be extremely challenging, and they demand that we adapt very quickly to those changes. And this is what can put a lot of strain on our relationships, whether it's the relationships with the person that we are caring for, or whether it's the relationships with the family, with our social network. But all relationships can be strained because of the fact that we have to adapt to some of the changes that come very quickly. So the workshop objectives today are to review together some principles that will help you experience the changes and challenges in your relationships with more serenity. So the point is really to give you principles that will help you experience differently what you are facing, and introduce you to simple exercises, which are going to be actually questions that will help you transform your relationship challenges into opportunities and blessings. We're going to go through all that. I mean, sometimes people tell me, well, how can you actually see opportunities and blessings in challenges in relationship? Well, when we have the right tools, it is possible. So my goal is to give you some of these very important questions to know how to turn these challenges into actual blessings. So the first principle that I want to go through with you is the law of conservation of energy. Now, I have to let you know that I am not trying to give you a scientific explanation of the whole thing. If some of you are scientists, you might feel like my explanation is very simplistic, but it's really to give you a good idea of what that is and to see how it applies to our relationships. So first of all, everything is energy. Now we know now that everything, even matter, is energy that is at a very low vibratory or more dense, if you will. But everything is energy in the universe, if you will. And that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes form. It changes from one form to another, or it changes from one form to many others. Okay? So the best way to illustrate that is with an ice cube. An ice cube is water, right? But if you melt it, it becomes liquid water. And then if you heat up water that is liquid, you end up with gas. In the end, it's all H2O. It's all water that has changed form. So the essence has not changed. It has remained, but it has changed form. The essence of things does not change, but it will take on different forms in time. So this would be a good time to ask you if everybody gets this, or if you need me to explain more about this. Is that very clear for everyone? You can just give me a little thumbs up. I don't know what you're seeing there. Okay. Everybody's on board, Kate? Super. Okay, so how can this knowledge help us with our relationships? Maybe you're going to ask. Well, first of all, it's important not to confuse form with essence. The ice cube is the form. Water that is liquid is the form. Gas is the form. The essence is H2O, right? A relationship constitutes a form, not an essence. All relationships are called to be transformed in time. So the relationship, the forms, will change form, right? And what does that mean also is that relationships hold different meanings, different essences for all of us, and they change form in time, but the essences remain always in time. Now, let me give you an example of that, and maybe that will make it clearer. So the feeling of security, for example, the feeling of security is an essence. It's something that we all need to have, right? But when we first get it, for many, many of us, it comes in the form of loving arms of a parent, okay? But it doesn't stay that way forever. At some point, we might get our feeling of security in a teddy bear, or in a soother, or in a blanket. And at some point, it might come in the form of a relationship with a sibling or a best friend, right? But that feeling of security changes. It is offered to us through another form. At some point, that relationship might not offer me the same feeling of security anymore, but it might be through my academic achievements, right? When I get to school, then all of a sudden I might be feeling more secure in myself because I get good grades, or it could be because I'm good in sports. So it will change like that in time. Eventually it may become in a girlfriend or a boyfriend, other friends, groups, but it will change in time. So my point is that relationships are forms that allow us to get different essences. And security is one of those. Okay? Everybody gets that so far? Does it make it clear to all of you? Yeah? Okay. At every moment, life offers me what I truly need through the forms that best support me in my evolution. Imagine that my feeling of security, I keep it in a soother my whole life. Well, it wouldn't help me very much when it's time to go and go in an interview for a job, for example. So it's normal that the different essences of life are offered to us through different different forms, and that at certain times they have to be taken away for us to be offered a new form. I mean, if you've ever seen a child that's really attached to a teddy bear or to a soother, and then you're trying to take it away from them, you know that it's not easy to let go of a form to which we are attached, right? We want to keep that form. But in order for us to move to a different form, sometimes one has to be taken away. Actually, not sometimes, but most times, this is the way it happens. So, the main cause of our suffering is our attachment to forms. It's when we don't want to let go of the form that is giving me a sense of security or giving me a sense of it could be all kinds of different forms. Actually, I'm going to wait, or different essences, and I'm going to wait to give you some example in a couple of slides. So the main cause of our suffering is our attachment to forms. The greater our attachment to a form, the greater the suffering will be when this form disappears. Again, like I mentioned, imagine that you have an attachment to a specific relationship because that relationship represents a sense of security for you, and then that relationship is taken away. Or, I mean, it could be in different way. Either the person passes away, or the person, you're having a fight and you guys are not, you're not seeing eye to eye. That sense of security might be removed, right? And then the more you were attached to that relationship, the more you will suffer. But our ability to recognize what doesn't die, the essence that remains, this will grow our appreciation and gratitude for the transformations, and it facilitates the acceptation of the losses. Is everybody still with me? I really wish I could see everybody, because right now I've tried everything that I can as a presenter to see everyone, and I'm not. But anyways, I'm going to count on you, Kate, to tell me if, you know, I'm losing anyone on the way. So everybody's good with that? Okay. So what are the example of essences that we might feel we have lost in a relationship? A sense of connection, okay? Oftentimes, this obviously applies for everybody, but for caregivers, I've heard from some of my participants to some of my workshops in the past that the connection with the person that is actually sick and that we care for sometimes can go away, especially when people start losing, for example, their memory. Then they don't feel that same connection with the person anymore, and that is very, very difficult. Again, I say we feel that it has been lost. The essence is still there. It's just that it's not in that particular relationship anymore. Is everybody following me with that? Okay. Another essence could be a sense of appreciation. We could have felt appreciated from our parent or our siblings, or sometimes we felt a great sense of appreciation because we were at work and we did really well, and then all of a sudden we're caring for somebody and we've stopped you know, what we used to do, either work, or it could be, what's the word in English? Volunteer work, where we felt very appreciated. And now we're not as much available for that, and we feel we've lost that. And that's painful. But what's assured is that the sense of appreciation, this essence, remains. It just has changed form. It could be in a new relationship. It could be in a new activity. It could be even myself giving me my own appreciation rather than having it from the outside. Support is another essence that oftentimes when relationships change, we feel that we've lost the support. I remember a time, it was not in the context of caregiving, but it was definitely in a time where I was not very well, and I felt like I needed the support, and I felt like I had lost it from the person that was the most important in my life at the time, and it was my husband, and I felt very upset and at him for not supporting me emotionally the way that I wished he would have. And the fact that I was able to ask myself, well, where is the support coming from then? That support doesn't come through that relationship anymore. That support that I wish I had from him is not being offered. But where is it? And this is when I was able to realize that the emotional support I wanted from him was actually being given to me by my sister and two of my best friends that were also coaches and that were better equipped to support me emotionally at that time and give me actually tools to get out of the hole I was in. My husband could have supported me emotionally, but never like these other three people were doing because they were equipped to give it to me. And at that time, my husband was actually supporting me financially. So you see how the support was still there, but it was in a different form. And the fact that I was able to recognize in which form it came was actually helpful in accepting the loss and recognizing the benefit of the new forms. I hope I'm making myself clear. Yes? Okay. So strength is also another feeling, another essence that sometimes we might feel we have lost. Some people, some relationship gave us a sense of strength. Again, I'm giving you some examples of my personal life because those are very close to me and I'm hoping that they will talk to you. But at some point, a couple years ago, my brother got sick and ended up passing away 9 months later. And I realized during the process that I was hurting tremendously. And when I asked myself what it is that I was missing, because the relationship obviously had changed because of his sickness, because of the fact that he was very ill, I realized that he meant to me this idea that everything was possible. When, even though I saw him 3 times a year, his presence in my life made me feel like everything was possible because he was always here. When he came to help me, it was to help me with things in the house and renovations, and there was nothing this guy could not do. And it gave me a great sense of it can be done. And when I realized that this is what was missing, I asked myself, obviously, where it had been transformed. And I started to realize that it was coming into me. I was becoming more and more strong with myself. I remember thinking that as I was actually doing a closet for my husband by myself with the drill in my hand, and before that, I wouldn't have done that. And at that moment, it was like, wow, what I thought was lost is actually taken form in me. Purpose is another thing that sometimes we lose or changes form. So the idea is that there are many, many essences that we might feel have been lost when relationships are challenged. It doesn't matter with whom. But when you feel that there is something missing, identify the essence. What is it that is missing? And usually the real essence is at a feeling level. So before you put a word on it, allow yourself to feel it, and then it's easier to put a word on what it is that you feel is not there. Okay? Any questions so far? No? Okay. So I'm going to ask you to reflect a little bit and see if what I've told you makes sense, and if you're able to identify one essence that you perceive is missing in one of your relationships. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a huge challenge with someone, but if there is a relationship that you feel has changed and is not what it used to be, or it is not what you wish it to be, I want you to take a couple of minutes to ask yourself, well, what is it that's missing? Am I able to identify the essence? So we're going to give you guys a minute or two to kind of, think about that. And then I would definitely love to know for you are at ease to share if you found something and if you're willing to share it. So, any of you able to identify something? You don't have to share, but if you've been able to identify something, we have a little bit of a sign?
Yes, a longtime friend, and it's a question of reliability, in which he should be doing certain things, and he sometimes doesn't meet the deadline or that sort of thing. So it sort of erodes the trust between us when you cannot count on somebody when they have the ability to do something, but they don't always come through.
Very, very good example. So trust is definitely something that we might feel has been lost in one particular relationship. And then we're going to go through the rest of the presentation, and hopefully that will help you with the process, find where it is now and how it's better for you, and how there's a blessing in that perceived loss. Okay, so thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Okay, so everybody ready for the second principle? Yes? Okay, so the law of balance. Oh wow, I see it's already 10:34. So I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. So the law of balance states that everything in the universe exists in a state of balance. I'm sure that this law pretty much all of you know. So the polarities, the am I going to be able to say complementary opposites, like the poles of a magnet, are inseparable. They come together. Okay, so we have the day and the night, and the hot and the cold, and the good and the bad, and the pleasure and the pain, and the loss and gain, and everything, happy, sad. Everything you can imagine comes with its opposite, okay? And we cannot separate them. They're like poles of a magnet. And you can't separate the positive from the negative. They come together. Balance applied to our lives at a cosmic level, at a biological level, and at a personal level. So we can't get away from it. It is a law that is there that applies to all of us. It applies to our body, it applies to our thoughts, it applies to our emotions, and it applies to our actions. Sometimes we overdo things, and if we do, we're going to end up underdoing things. Okay? So in time, everything tends to balance itself. Okay? So in time and space, we're always going to see that balance. But what I want to take your attention to is the fact that, well, we can illustrate this law of balance as a triangle where you have positive and negative on one side. It's like the poles of a battery, they're both there. Okay? But we do not see them all the time at the same time. These positive and negative, or both sides of things, if you will, as sometimes we say, the both sides of a coin, it applies to us, right? To myself. For example, it could be to our character traits. I might think that I have more qualities than faults, or more faults than qualities. But it's not the truth. That's only the illusion. The truth is that we have it in balance. Everything, in fact, is neutral. It's our perception that make us believe that we have more of positive or more or negative. And in time, depending on how we're feeling, sometimes we're up, we have self-esteem, we feel like we have more positive in us than negative. And then when we're down on ourselves, we feel the opposite. But my point is that neutrality is constantly there. It's our perception that leads us to believe that there's more of one than the other, when in fact everything is neutral. So for myself, for people around me, for experiences, for situations, for things, that neutrality is always there. We have snow that's going to come soon. Well, winter is not positive or negative. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's a neutral thing. It depends on how I perceive it. Okay, as an example. Personally, I have to work really, really hard to see the positive, because I find that the cold is getting to me more than ever. But in truth, you know, snow or whatever is any kind of situation that you can imagine, or any kind of thing you can imagine, is actually neutral. So, and I was talking about perception. Imagine that this triangle is a mountain. If I place you at the bottom of a mountain where you perceive the side is positive, you're going to have the emotions that go with it, and you're going to say, oh wow, what a great mountain. And you might have the inclination to go and climb it, and you're going to find it very beautiful, and you're going to see all the good side of it. But if I were to place you to the other side of it, where you see only the negative, because at the bottom of the mountain, you only see one side. You see the side that it's placed in front of you. And this is the problem with our perception at the the human level of our sensory input, because we see and experience according to our eyes and our senses, and oftentimes those are tinted from our past experiences and all what our belief system, and so our perceptions are tinted from all of those beliefs, right? But in fact, if I stand up the top of the mountain, I'm going to be able to see both sides at the same time. This is how you see people, you hear people that have gone through horrific situation, really dramatic situations in their life, and they're able to say with time, this was the best thing that ever happened to me. Okay? What happened is that they're able with du recul, what's the word in English? With stepping back from the situation, right? With time, they're able to see everything that emerged from it, and they actually can be grateful from it. What I want to offer you today and later are questions to help you get to the top of the mountain with those relationships that challenge you, questions that will help you get to the top of the mountain without having to wait these 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, okay? Because you can see much more quickly both sides of the situation. You can balance out what you thought was negative with the positive. Does that make sense to you guys? Yes? Okay. So again, when I'm at the bottom, at the level of my senses, I see one or the other. But when I'm at the top, I will see one and the other. Okay? So the positive and the negatives balance and neutralize each other. The bigger we perceive the negatives to be, the bigger the positives will be also. And sometimes that's hard to accept because our ego does not want to accept that something's suffering, you know, at the human level, at the very sensory level, at the bottom of the mountain. There's a part of us that says, no, that it's not positive. It's not possible that there's positive as big as negative. Okay? The greater the loss, the greater the gains, because it's a law of balance, and it is there and it applies. The trick is, do I want to look for it? We have to pay attention. We have to be very careful not to let our ego or the part of us that suffer keep us from looking for the positive. To recognize the gains or the positives or the blessing in a situation does not mean denying the painful or negative aspects. Okay? They're there. It is not because I see the other side that it negates it, but it allows us to see how it is balanced. And sometimes if you notice in you a resistance to look for positive, oftentimes it is because there's a part of us that is afraid that our pain is going to be denied. So when we recognize that and we can secure this part of us that doesn't want to negate the pain. It's not about negating the pain, but it is about recognizing that there is not only pain. Everybody following me with that? Okay. So again, the positive and negative are there equally, but we have a choice to be at a consciousness level that will allow us to see only one or the other, or at another consciousness level where we're going to see one and the other. And this is what I want to help you be able to do. Okay? So before the pause, I'm asking you to take maybe a minute and ask yourself, can I recognize again an advantage, a positive element, a gift or a blessing that has emerged from a past relationship challenge or a present relationship challenge? Are you able to ask yourself and look for it? And if you're able to find one, I would certainly love for you to share it with us. So I'm going to give you about a minute for that. Okay, so anybody found anything that came to mind? Someone would like to share maybe? Or was it too difficult to find?
My father's been into gone into a long-term care, and I guess the positive for me is that I've had better contact with my siblings. So I guess that's like something that's positive that's come out of the situation.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Was that something that you were aware of or already, or is it something that that grew in your awareness as you asked yourself the question?
Yeah, it kind of grew as I asked myself the question.
Okay, okay, excellent, thank you. Anybody else?
In a more general sense, sometimes when you have a difficult challenge ahead of you, trying to overcome it by yourself is a difficulty. And sometimes when you have other people and you work together as a team, if you achieve success through that, you certainly feel closer to the other members of the team, and you can look forward in the future if another very difficult challenge comes up, that you can count on these people as team players.
Absolutely. So that's a very good example that you both brought, that oftentimes and we're going to see that a little bit later after the pause, but our break, we oftentimes when certain relationships are challenged, in many occasions, at the same time, other relationships are being strengthened, are being deepened, are being developed. So this is something that I see that is very common in all of my clients. When I guess what's important to remember, because sometimes it's going to be in other relationships and sometimes it's going to be in other areas, and it's important to be able to look at everywhere, not just in relationships. But it is often something that occurs is that when one relationship seems to be disintegrating, it allows for other ones to be strengthened. And if we miss that part, if we don't see that part, then we can't take advantage of it as much as when we recognize it. And then it helps kind of soothe the fact that the other relationship is not what it used to be. So we're going to do a little, just a little game to illustrate something. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a minute. You see what's on the slide there. Close your eyes. Do not see a red apple. No red apple. Absolutely no red apple. I don't want you to see a red apple. No red apple. Okay, you can come back now. I'm just going to leave it as that. You can open your eyes. Quickly, What happened? Kate, you're laughing. What happened?
Well, it was just kind of funny because the whole time you're saying, don't think about it, that's really all you can think about. So I was really visualizing the red apple, even though you're telling us not to.
Okay. Anybody had the same kind of difficulty focusing on something else?
Well, I just know that when I had my eyes closed, I didn't see a red apple. Unfortunately, when I opened my eyes, it was still there, right? So
there. Okay. Anybody else wants to share? What do you think is the point of my this little game? Our brain has a hard time with the negation. Okay, it's like I'm newly a grandmother. I have two that are 1 year old, and then another one that was just born a couple weeks ago, actually. And I definitely see with the 1 year old now, it's even more obvious than when I was a mom. If you tell them what not to do, they will go there. You have to tell them what you want. You can't say, don't touch that, don't go there, don't do this, because they're going to go exactly there. You want to tell them, you come and play with this, and then you give them what they want. You give them something else, something that you want them to focus on, and then they'll go there. But if you tell them, don't do it, there they are again. Okay? So our brain is like that. If you say, don't think of a red apple, don't think of a red apple, don't think of a red apple, it's the bloody red apple that's going to keep being there constantly until you decide to focus on something else, whether it would be a blue car or a house or an orange or a banana, it doesn't matter. But if you do not decide what you want to focus on, and you keep telling your brain what not to focus on, it's going to focus on that anyways. Okay? And what we put our attention on will expand. The more you will see something, the more you will put your attention on it, the more it's going to grow. Why do I want to bring that up? It's because if the losses in your relationship, the perceived losses, if the pain are there and you say, I don't want to live this anymore, I don't like this anymore, I don't want this, this is going to keep being there in your focus, and it's going to take more and more and more room. Okay? The idea is, what is it that you want to see that's going to bring you to experience something different? And this is why we want to create the balance and not to keep focusing on the losses, but to balance it out and go see what the gains are, because then your attention being on it will help that grow. If I had told you, think of a red apple, then your imagination would have seen a red apple. It would have started to see it the way you want it, and you know, it would have taken different shapes for different people, but then you would have been able to grow that. Does that make sense to you? Yes? Okay. Let's do another little game, okay? I'm gonna give you 10 seconds at my signal. I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to find in your environment the color that will appear on the screen, okay? So at my signal, there's a color that's gonna appear on the screen, and I want you to find as many items in your environment that is that color, okay? So let's go. All right, so how many items were you able to find? Just a couple people here. Tell me how many items. A lot?
2. there's a blue pillow at the end of the sofa, and also at the television screen in the far corner on LCN. Of course, they have strips
Okay.
on the actual screen.
Okay, well done. Anybody was able to beat that too? Anybody got, I don't know, 5, 6, or I didn't give you very long, but
I only had one. It was just the blue on my cup. That's it.
okay. All right. So what I want to know is how many of you were able to see objects that were yellow? Did you look for any of those?
No.
No. Why? Because your perceptions are linked to the conscious or unconscious conditionings and commands that you've given your mind. Okay? If your mind is given to it, I told you, look for blue. You looked for blue. If I had told you to look for yellow, you would have looked for yellow. If your unconscious conditioning is to look for the pain or for the difficulty, this is what's going to come to you. You have to choose the commands that you want to give your mind according to the experience that you want, according to what you desire, not the opposite. Does that make sense to you? We live, it's very sad, but we live in a world where drama is very, very, how would I say? Not only it's present, but it's as if we are addicted to it. And unconsciously, when we start to observe ourselves, even me, sometimes I go, why am I talking about this? It's because it somehow makes us feel alive. There is something going on, and then we talk about what's wrong and all that stuff. But if this is the unconscious command that we give our brain and our mind, this is what we're going to get. If we want something different, it's very important to choose it. Okay?
Would the fact that, I think everyone has a favorite color and colors that are not so favorable for them, do you think that the fact that, say, blue is your favorite color, you would certainly make an effort searching for items around you that are blue, and you might not make the same effort if you didn't like yellow as a color?
You're making a good point. Actually, we tend to look for the things that we that make more sense to us. The things that we're attached to more. The point I want to make here is that sometimes unconsciously we are attached to our pain. And if we are, this is what by default we're going to see everywhere around us. And if we want to experience something else, it's important to first be conscious that there's a part of us that is attached to the pain. It's like remember when I showed you that triangle where you have at the bottom the pain on one side and the pleasure, the negative and the positive, right? Well, when the pain is very, very strong, and especially when we feel it hasn't been recognized, or that the people around us don't see how much pain we're in, we have somewhat of an attachment to it. It's as if we want it to be recognized. And it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it because you want to be able to acknowledge that pain. But the problem becomes when it is only that's being nourished, and that is being that's being nourished, that is being reprogrammed into the brain, because then it's as if we're going to pick up on everything that resonates with that pain. We're going to see it in other people. We're going to say, we're going to see that other people are living the same thing as us, and then that we don't see the positive just because our conditioning is about that pain. Does that make sense? Okay. Dr. DeMartini, one of my great mentors, said this sentence, and that really stuck with me. He says, the quality of the questions that you ask yourself will determine the quality of your life. And that certainly has been true in my life and in the life of my clients that have learned to ask themselves quality questions, questions that bring them in a better place. And this is what I want to help you. This is where I want to bring you guys, is to bring you these questions that will help you get to the top of that mountain. Again, not deny the pain, but allow you to see that there's another side of it, a side that's actually contributing to your better self. Okay? So that first question is about, what am I missing in that relationship challenge that I'm facing? Whether it is with the person that I care for, that, you know, I've lost something, or whether it is with a family member or a friend, it doesn't matter who the person is, but in that relationship challenge, what is it that I'm missing? We want to find that essence, right? So different ways of getting to that is, what do I perceive not having? Or what have I lost? What would I like to get in this relationship? There's different ways to ask the question that bring us to the same place. What is the essence of what I'm missing? How would I feel if the relationship was exactly as I desire it to be? Sometimes we have a hard time pinpointing what it is that's missing. But if I ask myself, okay, if it was exactly the way I wanted, how would I feel? And then that will kind of give you what it is that you feel is missing. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay.
I think that a lot of people have difficulty putting themselves in the shoes of the other person. You know, that they really can't understand, you know, when there is sort of a difference of opinion, you know, they feel very strongly regarding the opinion they have, but find it very difficult to understand the other side of the coin, you know what I mean? And it's something that, you know, having been a debating team coach in the past, you know, that's one of the things you train debaters to do, you know what I mean? To try to anticipate what the other side is going to say, so you're ready to counteract. But sometimes it's difficult when you're having a relationship with someone who's close to you, when you really have a disagreement, you don't understand the other side.
So would you say that this would be an essence, or something that you feel is missing sometimes in certain relationships, is this this capacity of the other person to put themselves in your shoes?
Yeah, I think it's a discipline that you know, if you have difficulty, you have to work at it, you know, to try to understand that, you know, there are differences of opinion, and, you know, not everyone always agrees, right? And
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, yeah,
So,
and you become more human if you are trying to understand the feelings of the other side, you know?
yeah. So if you allow me, if I were to coach you one-on-one with this, I would invite you to look at, what do you, if you had this, you know, ideally, if you had in that particular relationship that you're thinking about, or those relationships you're thinking about where you feel that is missing, how would you feel? Is it a sense of being understood? Is it a sense of being recognized? It could take on different labels, right? And there's no one label that's better than another. As long as it describes the feeling of what it is that you feel you would love to have in that relationship, and that is not there. This is how you go and you find that essence. Because in order to then be able to go look for where it is, you need to first identify well what it is that you perceive is not there. So this is what I always tell my client: give yourself a chance to really sit first and simmer a little bit in that feeling of, okay, how does that feel? That feeling of not having what is the word I want to put on it? What is it that I desire to get that I don't have? And usually it is at a feeling level, okay? And if you're able to identify that well in the beginning, then the other questions will come much easier. So that first step is very important to identify. Does that clarify a little bit?
Yeah, the other thing I think is meaningful dialogue, because through meaningful dialogue, there are elements of the situation that you probably didn't think about, and dialoguing with the other person, and they bring up certain things that you thought were not important, but it was important to them. You know what I mean? So that the dialogue can produce a fruitful suen, to problems. Yeah.
So again, in this particular instance, we would, when we feel that is not there, when I certainly remember times where I could not have that meaningful dialogue when I was in burnout and no longer able to function. I was not able to have that meaningful dialogue with my husband. I was not able to have that meaningful dialogue with my mother either. And that was very difficult. It was difficult because I wished it had been there. And the part that I was missing the most for me at that time was being understood. For me, it was that's what I felt, that they were not getting me. And it was very, very hurtful. So that is the first step, identifying in that particular situation that you're experiencing, what is it for you that is missing? And in an example like that, for me, it would have been not being understood. For another person, it could be not being recognized, or not having a purpose, or it's very difficult to how would I say? The thing is that it's different for everybody's experience, right? So there's only ways to do this with a true example that resonates with you. So I'm giving you general ideas so that you can relate in your own way. But in the end, you're the only one that can put a word on what you feel is missing in a relationship, whatever that context or condition is in that particular relationship. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is the first question, very, very important. Identify what you feel is missing in that challenging relationship. The second question is, where in my life do I get the same feeling or this essence right now? Where in my life am I actually getting it? So we're starting to look, it's that idea that I no longer have an ice cube, I have water or vapor, or I might have a little bit of an ice cube with a little bit of water and a little bit of vapor, or the forms can be all kinds of different, they take different shapes. But what we know is that this essence that you perceive is not there in that particular relationship. It is somewhere else. So where in my life do I get this same feeling or this essence right now? Who, what, which activity, what other relationship gives me that sense of being understood, or that sense of moving forward? Or it could be, again, different essences, right? But you want to look where they are offered to you. Do an inventory of the 7 spheres of your life. I like to work with the 7 spheres. So when I am convinced in my head that it's not there, no way, it's not there, I can't see it, then I go through the 7 spheres of my life. Is it in the spiritual realm? Spirituality can mean whatever for different people. So it doesn't have to be religion. Whatever spirituality means to you. But it is a part, an aspect of our life where you might be getting this essence. Is it in the mental level, intellectually? Are you reading more? Are you taking courses? Are you exchanging on certain subjects with somebody that is very exciting mentally? So it could be in that area. It could be with family members, extended family, socially. It could be with new friends. It could be with old friends. It could be socially is not just friends. It's also your commitment or your engagement in volunteer work or clubs or different things. But on that aspect, there could be all kinds of new things that you haven't perceived. Physically, the physical body, right? Health, anything that has to do with that. Sometimes people forget, because when I work with my clients, they forget certain areas, you know, like physical body is not just about health. It's about enjoying, you know, like food, or it could be sexuality is something that people forget to look there. All of a sudden, oh, I have a better intimacy with my loved one, and I never thought of looking there for that feeling of connection or that feeling of appreciation or whatever. So it's very important to look everywhere. Career, even if we are retired, there's an aspect of our career or our work that we've done in the past that could be coming up. So it's up to you to look through there. And finances, obviously. So by doing an inventory of your 7 spheres of life, that will help you tremendously in finding in which new form you are getting what you perceive you didn't have. Or what you perceive. Again, it's the form. I'm not saying the form has not changed. The form has definitely changed. Sometimes when a relationship is no longer there, like in the case of my brother, he passed away. Obviously, the relationship is not there the same way. But it's certainly changed for me, because now on a spiritual level, I feel more connected to him than I ever have. So, so it's just so that you give yourself new ways of looking at things, so that you can see that the form has changed. Review your day, your week, one activity at a time. That will tremendously help you find what it is that you perceive has been lost. I remember a lady in a workshop at one point, I forget exactly what, oh yeah, it was a sense of peace. She had said she had lost that peace in her life. She could not see anywhere where it was. And I kept saying to her, well, let's look at the 7th sphere. And then she says, and I assure you, there is no sense of peace in my life. Until we started to look at every single day what she does. Well, when you wake up in the morning, what do you do? And then you do what? And then you do what? And then all of a sudden she came to this realization that every single day she goes out into the yard behind her house, where, you know, it's forested, and then there's a place, a rock, where she goes and sit. And for a moment, she doesn't stay there very long, but for a moment, 10, 15 minutes, I don't remember exactly, she says, I get this tremendous sense of peace. Because it was a short moment in her day, she couldn't see that it was there. But then when she realized that it was very, very intense, that sense of peace was there daily in a very intense way, that right away allowed her to be grateful for that moment and get out of the idea that there was no peace in her life. Does everybody follow me? Okay, so it's the same for anything that you feel is missing in a relationship or in your life or in any part of your life, really. If you identify what it is that you feel is missing, and then you set out to look for where it is in your day, in your week, in which way. It's not necessarily with other people. Sometimes it's with yourself. Sometimes it could be a new activity that you do, okay? And I assure you, your whole being will change once you will recognize that. It's as if all of a sudden you take the high elevator to the top of the mountain and your heart opens and you feel gratitude for what is. Question 3. How is this better for me at this moment, that this essence comes to me in this form rather than the one I desire? Sometimes we need to ask this question because we have a hard time. We go, well, why can't it be like before? Why can't I have the connection, for example, with my husband rather than having with my sister? Okay, like I said to you earlier, or the emotional support or whatever it is that you're looking for. It's like there's a part of us that's attached to having it in the other form. And well, I want it that way. Why does it have to be that I don't have that one to have the other one? So asking this third question helps you really zone in on how it serves you better at that moment to have it in that particular form. Every form serves a specific purpose. Like I said earlier, my sister, the fact that she was there for me emotionally helped me strengthen the relationship with her. So she was no longer my little sister. She became my best friend. That would have never happened without the opportunity to strengthen that relationship. And my 2 girlfriends that were giving me the emotional support were there to give me the tools to help me get out of the situation I was in. So sometimes we need to take care of ourselves. I'm going to give you some general ideas why sometimes certain forms are there. I'll give you an example. Let's say that the sense of connection has been lost with the person that is sick. Well, if your sense of connection all of a sudden is with a friend that inspires you or incite you, encourages you to go for a walk every day. Well, maybe this is exactly what you need. Because if the connection stayed with the person that is sick, you would not take care of yourself as much, and you really need to do it in order to be able to stay present for the person that is sick. So sometimes the connection has to be reduced in an area and increased in another to help you better take care of yourself. Oftentimes I see that with people that give a lot of themselves. So for obviously caregivers that are there for others, oftentimes need new relationships to help them, encourage them, take care of themselves. Does that make sense? Okay, strengthen another relationship. I remember two ladies that were caring for their mom who had Alzheimer's. I think there was like 8 or 9 people, brothers and sisters in the family, and the whole family was fighting. And these two sisters were having a real hard time with what they had lost as friendship with, you know, the other brothers and sisters. But then came to realize that their friendship became very, very strong, and that was very important to them. And they realized that it would have never been so much unless they had lost to some degree with the other ones. Okay, so sometimes certain relationships need to be strengthened. It could be also completely be reversed. Maybe I remember a lady where her relationship with her husband was strained, but she at the same time had more time for her mom who was dying, and her relationship became very strong, and they were able to heal certain things before she passed away. But she realized that this availability, this freedom that she had came from the fact that there was less of a connection, or whatever it is that you want to call it, with her husband at the time. It freed her for being closer to her mom at that time. So strengthening another relationship is often one of those things, one of those benefits to have one form rather than another. A support that is more appropriate at my, you know, to my present needs. So again, maybe I need support from this particular person right now rather than the other, because this person can give me what I need rather the other person couldn't. Diversity and development of greater autonomy, that's another thing. Sometimes, remember I said one form can be transformed or changed into many forms. So sometimes we don't have that support or connection or appreciation or love or whatever that essence is from the one source anymore, but we have it from many. And the great benefit of that is that it renders us less dependent on the one source. It's very, very important to be able to be nourished by different sources, because then we get less dependent, right? So oftentimes when we feel one source has been taken away and that many other ones are there, maybe in smaller intensity, but there's many of them, it's oftentimes because we need to diversify our sources of pleasure or activities, or again, it could be any other essence. Okay. And number 4, as far as I'm concerned, that's the main question. How is this relationship challenge serving me? What are the gifts, the opportunities, the blessing that emerge from it? What does it allow me to be, to do, or to have that wouldn't be possible any other way? It's bringing you somewhere. It allows for something. If you ask the question truly and you want to find the answer, you will find it. The only time this doesn't work is if there's a part of me or a part of us that doesn't want to look for it. If I were to say to you, I hid a treasure in your room, we went there, we hid a treasure, I know it's there, find it. You could find it if you look for it. But if you choose to say that's impossible, there's no way it's there, you're not going to look for it, and you never will find it. So the treasures of the challenges of your relationships are there. You will find them only if you ask and you're dedicated to finding what they are. So again, do the inventory of the 7 spheres of your life, and do not stop searching until you find enough positives to say thank you and to feel gratitude in your heart for the blessings that come out of this challenge, and how the people that do not offer you what you wish they would are actually allowing, they're playing a role to give you something better through another form. So in summary, you're going to be able to read all this because my God, I took way more time than I was supposed to. So I think I will pass that. I want to let you know that my coordinates are there if you ever have any questions. I do personal consults, so do not be afraid to call me if you want information, and the first 30 minutes is always free for people to know whether they want to work with me or not. And I am done, and we can take a little bit of time for questions if Kate's going to allow it, because I know we're maybe at the end of the time allowed, but sorry about that.
No, that's okay, France. So there, oh, go ahead.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting presentation, a lot of food for thought. I've got to leave because I have another webinar at the University of Ottawa in 10 minutes, so I've got to sign in there, and really appreciated your presentation this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being with us. So anybody else has questions or comments or, you know, something that, feel free. I'm going to stay for a little longer.
I don't have any questions. I just want to thank you for your presentation. It was very informative and makes you think. So thank you.
You think that the questions that we saw at the end, I know maybe I pressed a little bit because, you know, I was a little tight in time, but you think the questions will help you look for more positive with the challenges that you're experiencing?
Absolutely.
Super, super. This is my wish when I do a presentation, is that you can go away with something.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, I guess I just want to thank everybody for their presence. I can't see if there's anybody else left, but there. So maybe, I don't know, Kate, if you want to say something, or Danielle.
So I'd like to thank everyone for your participation today. And just once again, I'd like to thank France Pérodeau for her time and her knowledge today on the subject. There are some resources available for caregivers. So we will be emailing you a document with a summary of some of those different resources, and with the link to subscribe to the Appui newsletter, which is centered and geared towards caregivers. If you're ever looking for any specific resources or any specific information, we're also going to include our contact information at Connections, and we do urge you to reach out and contact us if you ever have any needs that come up. So if there are no other questions, I wish all of you the best on the rest of your day. We do plan to host some more sessions geared towards caregivers, so just please keep an eye out for us in the future.